Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, taking a look back at the 2023 Breeders Cup Distaff at Santa Anita. They break from the gate, and Idiomatic's going to nail down championship honors as the best older filly or mare in 2023. Mike, another victory for Idiomatic. That'll be 5 in a row, 8 for 9 in 2023.
Yeah, going to get the job done here as the favorite in this race. Dan concedes the early lead to the 3-year-old filly randomized and just gets to her outside, stalks her around the track. Listen, it's not going to be pretty from the quarter pole to the wire, but she's going to get the job done.
This is one of those fast early, slow late races, but on the backstretch, you see Idiomatic, a horse that had previously won the Personal Ensign at Saratoga, the Spinster at Keeneland in gate-to-wire fashion, show the willingness to rate, and we had seen that in the Delaware Handicap after she missed the break. Randomized went to the front, Idiomatic sat right off of her. It seems like everyone's in a very good position and happy where they are right now.
Yeah, I didn't see, tons of excuses as far as trips go in this race, Dan. It really is going to be one of those races where everybody gets a position here up the backstretch. When this field hits the quarter pole, it does kind of feel like it's up for grabs because you'll see randomized and you'll see Idiomatic, and it really doesn't feel like either one of them is finishing with anything through the stretch here, but nobody can catch them.
Idiomatic is traveling very well. You see Adair Manor, who is in behind Idiomatic, the number 5 already under the whip. And right now, Giroux pushes the button. Idiomatic's going to take off, and it looks like Idiomatic's ready to sprint from home. But turning into the stretch, it looks like maybe for a second she's on E, and so is randomized. They're about to be swamped by everybody, or so it seems, and yet nobody can get them.
Yeah, everybody's got a shot here, and they are crawling here. This is the last 3/8 and over 40 seconds, the final furlong of this race in 14 seconds. These closers have a shot. They're right there on their heels and just can't quite make up the late ground here, Dan. I don't really know what to say about this race. Again, it wasn't pretty, but just based on the campaign that Idiomatic had, a deserving winner of the race, I think.
Deserving winner of the race, probably will even get some votes for Horse of the Year based on what she's done this season. Again, winning 8 of 9 starts, finishing up the year with 5 gradeds, 3 grade 1s. Let's talk a little bit about randomized. She really blossomed the second half of the year for trainer Chad Brown. She won the Alabama. She won the Belle Dame. She finished best of the 3-year-olds, almost taking this field gate to wire. Are you ready to admit she's better than you think she is, or no?
Off of this performance, absolutely not. But we'll see. I mean, listen, it's hard to knock what she did from, let's say the Saratoga meet on to the end of the year. Yeah, 3 straight super soft trips in winning 3 races in a row on the way into this. And then, listen, she held her own against the older horses here, Dan. This is not a race overall that I'm a fan of, but I won't tend to take anything away from randomized. She did what she had to do here.
Let's talk a little bit about Clairiere, who was last early as expected, tried to sneak through along the inside in the stretch, might have been over in behind horses, and I'm not sure she ever really got the optimal clearance she needed to kick on. That being said, it looked like she did have her chance.
Yeah, I kind of agree with all of that. I mean, I do like the move that Rosario made to not go wide around the final turn because he did have room on the inside. He took it. He got into range of the 1-2 finishers. When you watch the head on, Dan, you can sort of see in the upper stretch, Idiomatic and randomized sort of separate. There's a big hole there for Clairiere to maybe come through. But as soon as they drifted apart, they came right back together again. And in the last 16th of a mile or so, you can just see that Clairiere doesn't really have any daylight down there. And she's going to wind up getting nailed for third. I didn't want to give her a big excuse. But listen, there's a scenario there where if she has daylight in the deep stretch, maybe she gets there.
Search results, no real excuse for the Chad Brown trainee who sold at Fasig-Tipton after this race, and I believe is heading overseas. She got good position under Irad early. She seemed to be traveling well on the backstretch, and then when it was time to push the button, it was a brief wide bid and then a flattened out performance. Maybe 1 1/8 is just a little bit too far, but more than likely, she's just on a grade 1 type at this point in her career. She won the Acorn at 3.
Yeah, that could be fair. I think she's a good horse. I'm sort of with you, though. I mean, I know that you could sort of pick apart some of her races and say, listen, she's run well at 1 1/8, more than once, and it's not a distance that's too far for her. I think it is. I don't think she's at her best going this far, especially against top horses. And maybe the distance didn't get her here because she was never really involved. But I liked her going shorter. She had a really nice career, though, for Klarovich and Chad Brown.
Big long shot La Vida got up for third for Nacho Correas. This filly doesn't change leads in the stretch, this mare, and maybe that hurt her in this race, but we've just grown accustomed to it. She got the setup she needed. She was running on at the end. She just fell a little bit short.
Yeah, no excuses for her in this race. She had a pace in front of her. She ran very, very late in this race. Almost looked like in mid-stretch she was going to get nothing, just sort of grinding on her wrong lead. And then she sort of surged at the end to just get up for third. Good result for her, but she never looked like she was going to win.
Adair Manor was a pretty big disappointment, one of several Southern California-based horses. There were virtual no-shows during the entire two-day Breeders' Cup extravaganza. You saw her sort of cruising in a second-over trip, Mike, but she was all flat with about 3/8 to run.
Took a 3-wide tracking trip here. I didn't see anything wrong with the position that her rider had her in this race, Dan. But listen, it's one of those things. She came in on a real roll here, but you knew that she was really getting tested for class against these horses, shipping in to take her on here. She was going to have to take a little bit of a step forward in this race, and she didn't do it.
Idiomatic, trained by Brad Cox, as is Wet Paint, who just was probably in a little bit too tough in here, Mike. She's a true one-run closer, and this level of competition was probably a bit much for her. The 3-year-old fillies probably not up to snuff with the older ones throughout the year. She'll be back next year. We'll probably see her at Oaklawn.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, listen, she didn't run well in this race. I don't know how hard you really want to be on her, for this performance. She had a pretty good campaign in her own right, though, Dan. Very disappointed with the way it ended, but I don't think you don't have to really hold it against her going into next year.
Idiomatic might be back next year. She was never been off the board from 12 lifetime starts. Florent Giroux guided Idiomatic home in the Breeders' Cup, and she was one of several 2023 Breeders' Cup winners by the mighty Curlin. Let's take a look at the prices for the Breeders' Cup Distaff. Idiomatic was your 9-5 favorite. She scores at 560. Randomized second, Le Davida third. Maybe we'll see Idiomatic back for a 5-year-old campaign. Juddmonte still to decide.